All right, well, welcome everybody to today's Zoom seminar. We are going to talk about today. We're going to talk about how you can strategically add people from your haven't met database, which essentially is everybody that you don't know in the world, and so some specific tactics around that. The number one thing that we always hear from new agents, especially in our area, is so we have a lot of transplants here. I don't know anybody in the area. That's cool. That's understandable. And then that means you have to become more intentional about meeting new people and adding new people to your database. So a little bit about myself from that perspective. It's really where I built my business from. And I didn't have a huge database where I was either. And I was able to build my business by meeting people that I did not have previous relationships with and adding them to my database and then making them clients and then making them clients for life, which is where the real gold comes into it. So specifically today, we're going to talk about kind of some theory around lead generation first, and where I think a lot of agents miss the mark and the statistics show that. We're also then going to dive into some strategies that you can do. We're going to start in Facebook with command and building a Facebook ad. You guys are going to choose which strategy we go with on that to build a campaign. So we'll go step by step on how to build an ad for lead generation to add people to your haven't mets that way. We're going to talk about what you can do for follow-up, building a 19 to connect plan. So some specific strategies around that. And then we're going to finish off with just some other tactics to add people to your database with varying strategies. We're going to talk a little bit about open houses and then some farming strategies. So that's the plan for today. How does that sound to everybody?
Sounds perfect.
Perfect.
If you're able to pick up one or two things today that are going to help you in your business, would you find that worth your time today?
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. All right. So drop in the chat if you could, who on this call today has run a Facebook ad themselves through command. Go ahead just with a yes or no and just drop that in the chat. Either way, whether you have or you haven't, in the chat there, just so I can get a feel of who we've got here. So it seems to be split so far. So we got about half that haven't on a call, and about half that have. So good. So that means we got a good mix here, and I'm sure people that have may have learned some things from there, and people that haven't, they're going to have an opportunity to learn some things here. But where I wanted to start the conversation today was around intentionality. What we hear with a lot of internet leads especially is that these aren't good leads. They're garbage. Add your expletive there about these leads. What really it comes down to is you have to consider their intentionality behind how they came into your funnel. So how did they get into your haven't met database? And that's going to then decide how you're going to follow up with them. So what I mean by intentionality was, what activity did they take that got them to your database and from as in haven't met? That's going to dictate how you're going to follow up with them, what the frequency and intensity is behind that. So as an example, Facebook leads, they would be kind of at the top of the funnel, lowest of intentionality. These people came, they were just browsing through social media and just happened to see a pretty home or something, or a pretty area that they looked at. They clicked on, made them register. They get into your website. That's the lowest intentionality. They didn't, generally speaking, people don't wake up in the morning and say, I'm going to go look on Facebook for some houses. That's not where they go to do that. So very low intentionality, which equals very low cost for leads. You can get a lot of people added to your database and start nurturing them. That's going to change what your intentionality, what your frequency and intensity of your follow-up is going to be. The middle of the funnel, these, as far as intentionality goes, these are more of your pay-per-clicks. So we would call these like Google pay-per-clicks. They're showing a little bit more intentionality because they're specifically going to a website, a search engine, and typing in a keyword term that you match. So that would be Myrtle Beach homes for sale, Wilmington homes for sale, Southport homes for sale in North Carolina. Whatever search keywords you have triggered, that brought them to your site. So it's a little bit more intentionality. They could still be 3 to 5 years out and they're just learning about the area, but they're specifically putting into a search engine, or it's coming up on a video with the keywords that they have, that's leading you there. So that's kind of the middle level of intentionality. Then you have we would call the most buyer ready pool, as far as adding haven't met to your database. Those are going to be people that are actually actively out there looking, but haven't really engaged with a real estate agent yet. Those are your open houses. To me, if you were to talk to me, and if you were to ask me specifically, hey, Chris, I need to have a closing in the next 60 days in order to be able to feed my family in July and August and September, I'm going to say you need to be doing open houses. You need to be doing 2 to 3 open houses a week. They are out there. So they're actively out there looking for houses. It's kind of like, as an example, you're looking for cars. You can search the internet for cars all day, and you may be clicking through an ad, and those, if it's an internet lead, same kind of thing, very low intentionality for a car. But if you're actually walking the car lot, you've got a lot higher of an intentionality that you're looking to make a purchase. So that's going to determine what your frequency and intensity is going to be on your follow-up. Does that make sense? Any questions, comments, concerns? All right. So then after we create the Facebook ad and we start having leads come in, and we start talking about building your follow-up plan, your follow-up plan is going to be specifically crafted based on that intentionality. Example with that, if you start hitting a Facebook lead with, hey, do you want to set up a showing for that house you clicked on the other day, you're going to lose them. You're going to lose them pretty instantly. If you start calling them 5 times a week for the first 3 weeks, you're probably going to start losing them. So because their intentionality is super low, the frequency and intensity of your initial follow-up is going to match that. Whereas if someone's out there looking at open houses, you better be on that person starting the next day and the day after that and the day after that. Actually, you probably should be touching them as soon as they leave the open house. And we're going to talk about how you can specifically do that with command and the smart plans and tagging people through that. So that's what we're going to talk about after we build the ad. Questions?
Yeah, Chris, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, so you were just talking about people who reach out, like leads and stuff like that. What does that frequency look like? Because I get the people that are, coming into open houses. Just hosted one myself, and had some folks come through to them like immediately. They were very appreciative of that. But these leads that I have coming in, I've reached out 3, 4, 5 times to these that are within probably 2, 3 weeks old. I'm getting very, very minimal response back. But I'm getting good notes from these folks of like, hey, I'm looking at Leland. This is the price, 6 to 9 month time frame. And I've heard on average, it's about 6 to 8 touches on average before you really can kind of, engage people.
Yeah. And that's going to be dependent. I believe that's going to be a lot dependent on how they came into your database. And then the types of touches, the types of follow-ups are going to match that as well. So if they specifically came to an open house, you're going to start sending, literally start sending messages, hopefully before they even leave the open house, saying you can have some messaging going out to them right then and there. That's going to hopefully solidify that relationship. Even if you wait, really with an open house, you could wait. If you do an open house on a Saturday, if you wait to Monday, they could have already visited 5 more open houses and could have even put an offer in on one of them, and they're out. And that's maybe why they're ghosting you. So that's why the frequency and intensity on open house is going to be a lot different and a lot more intense. And you're going to build your smart plan that way from the beginning. Whereas that Facebook lead is going to be like, hey, thanks for visiting my website. just out of curiosity, are you looking to make a move in the area in the next six months or whatever that happens to be, or just out of curiosity, what intrigued you about the property that you clicked on, rather than, hey, are you pre-approved and looking to buy a house tomorrow? Can I go show you a property tomorrow? That's gonna be like, whoa. I just clicked on some properties. But if they're, and especially if you have that data on them from the open house, you're gonna want to follow up with them right away.
Okay.
Awesome. And we'll take a look, a little deeper dive onto what that can look like too. So, all right, now we get to, this is your part of the fun here. So we're next gonna build a Facebook campaign inside of Command. I'm gonna queue Command up here, and I'm gonna drop a poll in the up on the screen here for you guys. We're gonna choose, giving you guys the option of 2 different Facebook ads that we could run. The first one is to promote a single property. So it's like, maybe it's a new listing or an open house you're doing. So that would be to promote a specific listing. And then option B is going to be to run a more generalized search for like, hey, Wilmington homes for sale, or a specific price point, Wilmington homes for sale under $400,000. So we've got options to create both of those, and I'm gonna let you guys choose which direction we drop that in. So I am going to launch this poll here. Again, choose showcasing a listing or create an area search. While you guys are voting on that, I am gonna queue up my screen share and share Command. Give it about 15 more seconds there. I know we got more people on here than have voted. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and end the poll here and share that with you guys. So we've got 4 out of 5 of the voters decided that they would like to showcase a specific listing. So that is what we will run with here. So thank you guys for playing along there. Hopefully, hopefully it keeps you awake as we go through this journey here. So that's exactly what we're gonna do. So I'm gonna go ahead and reshare my screen. Hopefully you're gonna see this here. And hopefully you guys are seeing my Command campaigns dashboard. Is that correct?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, cool. All right. So we're going to go step by step here and how to create a Facebook campaign inside of Command. So to do that, we're going to go in the top right. I'm going to click on Create Campaign. And we are going to do a social ad paid. And we are going to call this, let's see here. And in this case, since you guys chose to showcase a specific listing, I'm gonna go ahead and hit advertise listing. And then the next step you're gonna do is where will your campaign run? My personal opinion is Facebook only. I don't think the pay-per-click on getting it onto Instagram and their partners is quite where it needs to be as of yet. So I'm just going to choose Facebook. Again, you can choose to do Facebook and Instagram. My personal preference is Facebook only. I'm going to go ahead and hit Create Campaign. That is going to bring up, since we chose Advertise a Listing, that is going to bring up automatically the property search bar. If you have any listings that are connected to you in your Command account, those are automatically going to pull up for you. If there's none in there, you can go to all listings. That's going to pull in everything. I specifically had already pulled up an option here. So I'm going to go ahead and try to search for that property. And there it is, 2122 Bay Colony. I am going to go ahead and select that. That's going to pull in all of the data for that listing, including automatically defaulting to the primary photo from the multiple listing service. It automatically also is going to pull in the closest it can get to 250 characters for a main copy. The main copy is what's going to show up above the photo. Then you have to enter a headline. We are limited, and this is probably the #1 challenge for running a Facebook ad, is we are limited to what we can, number of characters. We're limited to 25 characters, which is really hard here. So I am just going to try to put something in here. New listing and landfall. Perfect. It fit. Description. Description is the third component. It is a required field. However, you need to know that that is only going to show up in probably about half of the ads. It's not going to show up in all of the ad placements. It's really going to show up on the desktop version. It's not going to show up in a lot of mobile devices, but they give you some suggestions here. You could be coming home to this. You can shuffle the options, schedule a private tour with me today, view photos. You can just choose one of those, or you can type your own. You have 250 characters that are up there. I'm going to go ahead and view videos and photos of this home, use suggestion. So you'll see it's building the ad over here. Now I see a green check mark there. That means that section is good. I can go ahead and hit save. Our goal before we run the ad is we are going to make sure that you have all green check circles for all of those. So the circles are all filled in with green. So the next thing, again, even though it's already filled in, we have the opportunity to edit the media that's there. If you want to edit the photo, like say you didn't want to show that one, maybe you want to focus on a kitchen or a backyard, backyards and lifestyle photos run better. They sell better on social media than sometimes exterior photos. You also have the option to create a carousel. So with the carousel ad, you can highlight up to 5 photos and it will kind of scroll through those photos. So to do that, you go ahead and hit configure. And if you wanted to change that one out, you click on the 3 dots and you hit change image. Will take a little while to pull in all the images. You can then choose any of the images. I'm just going to scroll through and find one. Maybe I am. There we go. Maybe we got this lifestyle photo here. I like the backyard. Go ahead and preview and crop image. My best practice is going to be a square image. Square images are going to show up on all media formats better. So that is going to show up better on mobile devices. You can change that from a square to a wide. That a wide is going to pull in more of the MLS image. Again, my preference would be the square, and it even says best for most placements. Sometimes it is challenging to get that all in there, but you can kind of manipulate a little bit. Now I've got it cropped so that that is my image that's going to show up. Next thing is going to be that you do need to have the Market Center logo on a specific ad, or really any ad from a North Carolina Real Estate Commission perspective that will add that to the image. I'm going to go ahead and take that off of there and then re-add it. Maybe. You can send that to the right corner for compliance purposes. You can choose whether you want that to show up on the left-hand side or the right-hand side. Once you have that, go ahead and hit save. So now we're going to go into Facebook settings. So Facebook settings is where we're going to tell it which page that we're going to promote it from. So to side point here, you must have a business page associated with your personal account to be able to run a Facebook ad with command. So that is what's going to show up here in this ad here. So again, I have my account connected. You go to select which page you want. I'm going to go ahead and say Gray Street Group. Let's not that. Let's do Kelly and Pete. Pulls in all of that info. The next thing you need to do, and this is a very important step in the process, you need to, if you're going to use this as a lead generation tool, you need to choose the destination to be a Facebook lead generation form. You have to do that, or it's not going to, you're going to get lots of views, lots of clicks, but you're not going to get any leads, because there's no capture behind it, because it doesn't require that information to come up on there. So it doesn't require registration without that Facebook lead generation form. You then choose your button label. You can choose from learn more, sign up, or apply now. I like to leave learn more for that. Now the website URL. So this is what is going to happen. This is where it's going to redirect them once you have captured their information. So once they give you their information, so as soon as they click on the ad, it's going to say, hey, give us some information. They fill out that information. You need to direct them to a page. So that's for the next thing that we need to do. So the next thing we need to do is you would go to your website, or the website you want to pull it from. My recommendation would be to put that in the search bar. Go ahead and search for it. So I have the property 2122 Bay Colony. I go ahead and I hit search. That pulls up this page right here. So this is what the page looks like on your KW agent site. This is the URL you want to copy. So I'm going to go up to this URL right here, and I'm going to go ahead and copy that entire URL. Once I've copied that, I'm going to go back into command, and I'm going to enter that website URL in here. It's going to validate that with a green check mark saying that this is a good address. Now that means it's good. That means it's going to a legitimate house. To a legitimate website. Doesn't necessarily need it needs to be that house, but then it needs to be it's not required to be that house. It's best practice to send them to the house that you're advertising. So then to finish off the Facebook settings, and this, if you run an ad in the past, this is a brand new feature. I would say it's less than 2 weeks old. You now have the ability to create a saved audience. So if you always run your ads to the same group of people in the same area, you can now save that audience rather than having to go and collect and click through all of those demographic information that you used to. So let's say we're going to target Wilmington. We're going to target 20 miles. When you go into detailed targeting, you're going to go to create custom audience. From there, you're going to choose your interest. So I'm going to go ahead and add interest. Let's just say Zillow for one, realtor.com. And let's go with another one that I like, especially like if it's a property like this that's in landfall. I may be looking for luxury vehicles. So again, luxury vehicle, go ahead and hit save. Now that audience is there. So this is the audience that I've created for this. And let's say I'm frequently going to use an ad like this to target properties like this. I can go ahead and hit save this audience. I enter that name, name it anything I want to. It's also going to show you what the detailed targeting you used is. I go ahead and hit save. Now, the next time I come in here, rather than having to recreate that audience, I just go over to saved audiences, choose my saved audience, and it automatically pulled all those in. So rather than having to go through and tag and pull in all those tags every time, it's going to automatically do that. Now on the right-hand side here, you can gauge, this is another new feature. They have an audience definition and they've color-coded it to let you know how specific or broad the audience that you've created is. So let's say you created an ad that was 50 miles of New York City and you didn't do anything else as far as criteria to filter it down, you probably have way too broad of an audience. Now, if you have too specific an audience, it's going to show up in the red, and that's going to say, hey, you may want to consider, cutting back your criteria on here because there's only 1,000 people in the world that meet that criteria. So this is a good gauge here. Again, it lets you know how your audience is doing, at least from a Facebook analytics perspective, as far as overall. Now, there are cases where you are targeting a small subset of people like that, and that would be okay. And sometimes even better, because sometimes quality of leads is going to be better than quantity of leads. So you would go ahead and I'm going to answer a couple questions here that I see in the chat. So yes, if you wanted to send this lead out to a certain area rather than just to here, under your custom audience, you can choose anywhere in the country. And let's say I want to send this to Billings, Montana. I would go ahead and choose Billings, Montana, and I would say a 10-mile, 15-mile radius. Now, if I'm doing an ad like that, I'm probably changing my call to action here. People in Montana may not know what landfall is, but maybe it's something, hey, thinking about a move to the East Coast or buying a vacation home in the East Coast. So you're going to target your copy based on where you're sending that ad to too. Like a common one for us here, targeting people in the Northeast during the winter months when it's snowing. You might run an ad that's something like sick of the snow, and you send them in a specific, an ad to move down here. Where do Facebook leads go? So as people are captured in here, they're going to go into either, if you're running it from a solo account, they're going to go into your own solo agent account. If you're running it from a team account, they're going to default go to the Rainmaker in the team account, unless you set up some lead routing. So you can turn on lead routing on top of this, and it would instead turn it to whatever your lead routing rules are. And there are about 4 or 5 rules that you can set up from a lead routing standpoint. See one other question, Stephanie. I will, if you go, the best place I would say for Innovate logos is going to be innovateagents.com. And if you go to resources for North Carolina, the logo files are right there. All right, one other question I see in the chat. Do we need to get the listing agent approval to use their photos and copy? It would definitely be best practice to get said permission from them to run it. Anybody from a KW Innovate perspective, if it was any one of our listings, you're pretty much free to do it, as technically the listings belong to the firm. However, again, best practice professional courtesy would be to reach out and say, hey, Lois, I saw you got that new listing in Landfall. Do you mind if I run an ad on that? If an agent were to tell you no on that, they should probably have their head checked, because you're only promoting their property, but that's just my own opinion. Any other questions? So we're gonna go ahead and save that. And then we've got one final thing to do, and we're ready to run an ad. All right, so last thing you're gonna do is under configure, this is where you have the option to automatically tag people and then automatically run smart plans. So you have 2 different ways you can do this. You can have the tag trigger the smart plan in your smart plan design, or you can just add the tag here and then automatically trigger the smart plan here. And it won't let you to run the smart plan twice. It'll kind of make it so you don't do that. I'm going to go ahead and say, I want every person who comes in with this from this campaign to add the tagged Facebook lead. I'll go ahead and check off that. Now you'll see, as soon as it did that, it said this will trigger the Elevate Leverage Services new lead smart plan. So I have it set up on the smart plan to automatically, every time it sees that tag come in, to automatically run that smart plan. So I don't have to do anything else here unless I want to add it to another smart plan. If I wanted to add it to another smart plan, I would just then choose it here, and I would say daily social plan, Mark 22, go ahead and save. What that will do is as soon as that lead comes in, it'll automatically tag them as a Facebook lead, and it will automatically add a new lead smart plan that it created. And in this case, it will automatically add the daily social media plan that I had set up as well. That's not really a smart plan, but that was just for display purposes. I would go ahead and save that. And then the final component is just setting the duration and the budget. My personal preference is to run a lead and ad for like 3 to 5 days. Anything over that, people are going to start seeing the same thing over and over. In this, well, a couple of reasons. One, the property's probably sold. Two, you're gonna, again, you're gonna start seeing start seeing diminished returns. Your cost per lead will go up after that at that point in time. So my recommendation is basically $2 to $5 a day for 3 to 5 days. And you would set, total campaign budget. If I was doing this for $5 a day for 3 days, I would just change this to 5 days, $15. And now I'm at $3 a day. I would go ahead and hit save. And then the final component would be to publish the smart plan. I'm not going to do that because I don't want to spend my money. Aha, takeaways. Did anybody who's running an ad learn something on there, or what did you learn? Nobody learned anything?
I did.
Man.
It's with the tagging part, I like I don't think that was on there before. If it was, I missed that, but the auto tag. So I think and deciding the smart plan, I think it's brilliant because then it's just done. You don't have to do anything else for a while. But if I got
that, and that's really important because we know people are browsing. That's really important because we know when people are browsing, it's 2 o'clock in the morning or 11 o'clock at night, and that will automatically start that smart plan for them. Questions, comments, other ahas?
So what's the pricing for how many people this is going out to? You defined an area and other criteria, but do we know how many it goes out?
We don't, because you're bidding. It's a bidding process. So Facebook has their algorithm, and it's going to be based on how many other people are competing in that ad space for that audience. You're basically just telling Facebook, here's $15, do the best you can. Here's $25, do the best you can. Now, that's going to be your results on that are going to be variant on the type of photo they use, the how compelling your copy is, all of that kind of stuff. But on average, we're seeing here, you can see here, I've got 80 cents per lead on this campaign, 88 cents on that one, yet other ones were, $5 a lead. Anything else? All right. Well, now that you've added leads to your database, now you need to connect with them. So the best way to do that is going to be through that smart plan. So again, as we talked about earlier, you're going to want to gauge and you're going to want to create your touch plan based on the source. So example being, and we kind of talked about a little bit earlier, if it's an open house, I'm going to be touching them a lot, and I'm going to be touching them a lot immediately. If it's a Facebook, it's going to be a little bit more passive. Maybe you're going to set them up on a saved search, so they start getting properties that are similar to what you have set up. So you're going to add all those tasks, and you're going to design a smart plan based on that follow-up. So I'm going to use the open house as that example because I think it's a money opportunity, and I think where a lot of agents lose the opportunity that run open houses and don't have success with them sometimes is they wait too long because your frequency needs to be pretty quick with them, and with the technology that we have, you can get that stuff out to them pretty quick. So to build a smart plan, we're going to go up to smart plans, which is going to be the one with the little gearbox next to it and a couple of check marks and boxes and lines. Actually, because it's not a check mark. So the goal is to build what they call a 19 to connect plan. You're just going to have to choose what frequency you're going to, and the intensity for that 19 touch. I say it's 19 touches to connect is kind of the ideal. And so you're going to build your smart plan based on that. So hopefully my smart plans console is going to come up here, and it has. So I like to start, a good place to start would be in the library. And I'm a big proponent of taking other people's stuff and reusing it. That's what they're sharing it out here for. So to do that, in case you didn't know this was here, you can just start typing in a keyword, and you might see some touches that are out there. So rather than going in here and creating a 19 touch smart plan myself, I might as well use someone else's and maybe tweak it. So if there was one that was out here, so reach out to a lead that someone acquired at an open house. So if you want to take a look at the steps, you just go hit view steps. It's going to show you what's going to happen. It's going to send out an automatic touch that's saying, hey, thanks for coming by. What did you think about the open house? Delay, 1 day touch interaction, 2-day phone call, text message. So it's a pretty good campaign. If I like that, I would go ahead and hit add smart plan. Some smart plans are linked together. I've probably added this one already. That's probably what it is. So if you want to you want to use someone else's smart plan, you can do that. You see there are 169 open house smart plans as an example, or you can just be like, you know what? I don't like any of them. I'm going to create my own. And that's what we'll do today. We're going to go ahead and create our own smart plan. We're going to call this open house high frequency. Go ahead and apply. That's going to bring us into the open house creation, the smart plan creation tool. And we are going to then start building our smart plan. Side note, and this is just a pro tip, depending on this type of smart plan, you're going to want to be careful about what your first engagement is. So if you choose to use a text message, which is a great automated touch, especially if you have it connected to Twilio, you can have that smart plan go out immediately. If you choose to use a text message first, you just want to be careful on that, because if it's a Facebook lead and that came in at 11 o'clock at night, as an example, text messages only go out between 10 a.m. and 6 p.m. So if the first action item in a smart plan is a text message and it can't send that text message, it does not go to the next step in the message. So let's say the lead comes in at 11 o'clock at night. It's not going to send that text message out until almost 12 hours later. And it's not going to send anything out to that person. That person is long gone from your website. So pro tip there, if you're going to build a smart plan, just start thinking about all of those kind of things. But in this case, an open house most likely is going to be during the day. I'm going to go ahead and add a text message as my first one. And I'm going to say, hey, use a merge field. So it always sends out the contact's first name. Thanks for stopping by our open house today. What did you think about the house? Go ahead and do that. I can then start choosing some other steps that I'm going to add there. So let's say I want to send an email, or I want to set them up on a search as a task. So then I would go in here and let's say my next step that same day. So day one, day of the open house, I want to send them a text message. I want to also send them a saved search of other properties that are similar. So I'm going to go ahead and hit create task. And that's going to be due on that same day. And it's going to be set up saved search based on open house area. Go ahead and hit save. Now, you know what? It's the middle of the weekend. I'm not going to send anything else out. I'm going to go ahead and say, hey, I want to set a delay, and I'm going to make that delay be 1 day. I'm going to go ahead and save it. Then maybe on Monday, if it's again thinking of when this is going to happen, I'm going to make a call. Follow up on open house. That's going to add a task to your task list to specifically call and ask them about their feedback for it. Then maybe I'm also going to send that same day, I'm going to send an email. And you can get a lot more creative with your content here. This is just to show you the structure. And again, just start thinking about the frequency and intensity that you want to follow up with them. You can use a merge field over here. So a merge field is just going to make sure that it puts that contact information or whatever field you tell it from the contact card in there. Thanks again for stopping by the open house. Or are you open to other areas? It's an important question to ask. That way you can fine tune their criteria for them. Go ahead and save. So you're going to start building that smart plan out. You're also going to have some touches in there. If you add that saved search, you're going to you're going to have touch points naturally, especially if you're sending out daily notifications to that person through a saved search, which is a very, very underutilized tool inside of Command. So once I have my smart plan all built out, where the real gold and the real value and how you can start again. So you could be still working the open house and having this smart plan go out to people. So the way you would do that is you would add a trigger event. So I'm going to go up here and I'm going to add a trigger event. So a trigger event means every time I add this tag to someone, it's going to automatically roll them on the smart plan. So I'm going to go ahead and hit add trigger event. And the only thing you can change still as of now is going to be your the tags. So I'm going to say every time that I add the tag open house list to somebody, it's going to automatically send this smart plan out to them. So the beauty of that, and kind of what I would say is, again, a pro tip for that, I know a lot of people use a lot of different methods to capture open house registrants information. One of the things you can do is you can create a landing page and use Command to capture your leads that way. I think a brilliant way is to just hand them your phone, hey, or even say, hey, I want to add you to, thanks for stopping by. The sellers have asked for your information. You have your phone out, you start adding them to Command. Right there on the fly, you can then add the tag right to them that says open house list. And then literally while they're walking around the house, assuming they gave you information that is valid, they'll get a smart plan from you. Or maybe even better, so it's not too stalkish, you wait until they leave the open house, you add that tag to them, and they get that text message 5 minutes, after they've left the house. So again, you've got that immediate follow-up with them, and hopefully you can start building, start or stay in rapport with that person. To answer your question, I see one question in the chat here. Yes, it does indicate the contact name. So you can add that as set up a saved search for contact first name. Oh, sorry. For the merged fields are over here as well. I don't know why it's not adding it. Should. Go ahead and save that. And I would go ahead and save that, that smart plan. So you're gonna start building that out with the, you know, again, whatever you're in. So for an open house, you're going to be very heavy in the beginning. You're going to start hitting them. I mean, you saw this smart plan here was what, 6 steps in 2 or 3 days. I don't think that would be too much. Again, you're only calling them one time. You're sending text messages. Hopefully that is getting them right there. And here's another pro tip too, so you don't have egg on your face. If they start responding and engaging from that first text message that you send out, you probably want to stop this smart plan and maybe add them to a different smart plan based on where your conversation is going. Because you don't want to send up an email the next day saying, hey, what did you think of the open house? Well, silly face, I already told you what I thought of the open house. We talked for a half hour after the open house. So just some things to think about there, again, as you're building out your smart plan, or take someone else's smart plan and edit it to make it your own. Questions, comments, concerns, ahas, takeaways.
Can you take someone else's smart plan and say you just didn't like one piece of it and change it out when you bring it into yours?
Yep.
Oh, you can't. Okay.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, and that's actually when you add a smart plan from the library, it even says that, like, hey, just make sure the stuff is right. Because there was one, it was funny. So kind of the evolution of this whole thing as it's happened, there was an agent who put together a smart plan that was a good follow-up for Facebook leads or you know, first touches. And it said something along the lines of like aloha from sunny Maui, and it had like a rainbow in it. Well, if you send that out from Wilmington without changing it, you're going to look like a complete,
Yeah.
Completely unprofessional. But it was happening. So you want to go in and make sure it's not, you know, your custom. The personalizations are relevant for where
Gotcha.
you're at. But yeah, you can, and what the beauty of it is it'll give you a good structure, and then you just got to customize the stuff that you want.
Cool.
Cool. All right. The final things we want to talk about are just some other things to add. So we talked so far, we talked a lot about what you can do inside of Command. There are lots of other options that would be available to you. Again, to me, it's going to come down to your needs as far as how quickly you need to get business into your pipeline. I think to me, the winning combination is a variable plan. So you don't want to choose just one place and put all your eggs in there. You know, you don't want to do all open houses. You don't want to do all Facebook leads. Kind of some other things that you can do to add non-nets or haven't nets to your database are going to be something like geographic farming. Now that is generally a long-term play, and that requires you know, probably at least 12 to 15 months of follow-up to really start reaping your rewards on that. But for those of you who aren't familiar with a geographic farm, that is where you choose a specific area and say, hey, I'm going to dominate this area and I want to become the go-to expert in that area. You're going to have to come up with some kind of campaign that is at least probably 12 to 15 months before you start seeing a return on that. But long-term, that can be a phenomenal play for you. Again, that's going to be, a postcard a month plus a few events in the area, plus some pop-bys, walking the neighborhood, that kind of stuff. There's a lot of stuff you got to think about for that. It can be a very costly adventure, yet it can be a very lucrative adventure as well. And if you go back through the library of recordings in the Innovate YouTube channel, there was a class that we did specifically on that goes over all the metrics to choose which neighborhood you want to farm. I think that a lot of agents gravitate towards the one they live in. Sometimes that's good, sometimes it's not. From a couple different, if no one ever leaves your neighborhood, it's not an area you want to farm. I use an example for myself. Back in my old neighborhood where I lived, I chose not to farm it. There was an agent in my office who chose to farm it. I would see his postcard every month. One time I saw him in the office. I kind of walked by him and I was like, "Hey, got your postcard the other day. Just out of curiosity, how's that campaign working for you?" He's like, "It's actually not working that good. Thinking of stopping it here pretty soon." No one ever moved out of my neighborhood. Like there were 3 or 4 houses in the neighborhood that were inherited. Like the kids lived in the house they grew up in because no one ever left it. So you got to think about turnover if that's something you're going to do. Again, happy to sit down with anybody and talk about that. I know that Leverage Services also has a farming campaign where they will do all of that for you. So they'll design the campaign for you. You'll commit to a certain number of mailings for them. They'll pull all the data for you from that neighborhood and set that campaign out for you. So great option there. And then the other one, which is now more of an instant hit, and it's a quick in and out. It's not something you're going to consistently send to an area, and that would be the golden letter. It's a great way to add people to your database, and they're probably now type people. So if you haven't heard of the golden letter, that is a very specific call to action around a specific area that you want to focus on. So let's say it's you have a buyer that's looking in a specific neighborhood. There's no inventory out there. This is your way to go find inventory for them. And at its purest form, and there's been lots of what this has morphed into, in its purest form, it is literally a 2-sentence handwritten, hand-addressed envelope that inside is a form letter that says, "Hey, Kelly, would you consider selling your house at 123 Main Street to one of our interested buyers? If you are, give me a call," and it puts your phone number in there. You sign it. The key is the hand-addressed envelopes that, again, if you're anything like me, I open my postcards over the trash. Like I literally open them over my recycling bin and they just go right in there. Now the branding is still having an effect up here, but I'm not opening any of that. If I see a handwritten letter, even though I know it's probably a marketing thing because no one ever writes me a letter any day nowadays, I'm still going to open it. And if I'm in any position where I'm thinking about selling, that's going to be the person I call. So we've seen some pretty good success stories with golden letters. We got about 4 or 5 minutes left here. What other questions or any other things that you guys have done or seen done or like to learn about as far as adding more people to your database that weren't in your database before? You can find lots and lots of content out there on your METs and the 36 Touch program. We find a lot of agents are challenged with that because they don't know where to start with that. Really, at the end of the day, I think it comes down to being in sales is uncomfortable. You need to choose your uncomfortable. Do you want to be uncomfortable calling people you know, or do you want to be uncomfortable calling people you don't know? Or both. So I need to get some wins, some ahas, some takeaways. Was this worth your time to spend 55 minutes with me so far today?
Yes. Because
tell me more about that.
It actually, I've been through this a little bit, but this is just bringing it back. And I need to get out. I need to get out here and do this because I know it's there and it's phenomenal. So I'm happy I did this. It just kind of like a re-education, and I learned some new stuff that I forgot some stuff. So this is great. Thank you.
Yeah. So Stephanie, you can just type in, if you just type in Innovate You into YouTube, it should come up as our channel there, and you can like and subscribe there. And again, there's a that's where I post most of the recordings from, like today, as long as I remember to hit record. What else? Give me one more thing that someone learned today.
The trigger.
I love it.
I don't
tag triggers.
I got with a trigger. Okay, that's awesome.
Yeah. And you can add that anytime too. So, you don't have to add it automatically. The ad is cool too. But if so I use a real world example. So many of you have signed up over time for my 66-day challenge, especially newer agents. You go in. So I get an email notification that adds that person to my command database and says, hey, you have a new lead that came in. I go in and I literally just hit I just add the tag 66-day version 3 to someone, and that sends out all 66 days worth of videos. If you guys think I'm sending you videos every day on a consistent basis, that's not the reality. The reality is the auto tag that does that. So, or the trigger, I should say, the trigger on the smart plan. So, anything else? All right. Well, I thank you for taking your lunch hour with me today. Hopefully, again, you got some good stuff out of this. But thank you again for your attendance, and I'll see you guys around soon.
Thank you.
Bye.